Hello and good morning to all of you, my dear children. Today is Thursday and I am here once again with a video on this topic in economics. The topic is Determinants of Demand. It is given on page number 5 of chapter number 1. Chapter number 1, page number 5, point number 1.3.1, and the topic is Determinants of Demand. Here in this topic, what we are going to learn is what are the factors that determines the demand. And dear children, there are 7 factors that determines the demand for any commodity. Sometimes we buy more of a commodity and we buy less. Why do we buy only one television? Why do we buy not one egg? Why do we buy the whole carrot of egg or one bag of rice? No, one jar of oil. Why not 1 kg? Why not 250 grams? Which commodity do we buy more and which commodity do we buy less? Why do we do so? Why do we buy more of some of the commodities and sometimes we buy more and sometimes the same commodity we buy less? There are some factors that determines. And in this lesson we are going to find out these factors that determines the demand for a commodity. There are 7 factors. I have listed them out here on the board, and the first one is the price of the commodity. This is a very simple point to understand. Price of the commodity plays a very important role in our day-to-day life. The commodities which are available at a cheaper price, we are in a state to buy more. So we normally create higher demand for this kind of commodity. But those commodities which are expensive, we cannot buy. Everybody cannot buy. They may have to save money, and once when they reach to that stage, they would buy one unit of that commodity if it is very expensive. So price of the commodity. If the commodity is cheap, we buy more, and if the commodity is expensive, we buy less of a commodity. That's the reason why sometimes whenever we go to a town, malls, and whenever we see discount, that means the commodity which was supposed to be available for 1000, if it is available for 800 or 700 or 600, then though at 1000 we would not have purchased, but when we get that commodity for 600 and 700, we happen to create demand, we happen to buy them. It all depends upon the price. So those commodities which are cheaper, we buy more, and the commodity which are expensive, we buy less. This is the first factor, and the price of the commodity determines the demand. Okay. Now second factor is income of the consumer. This is also very easy to understand. Income means those people who has got higher income, they have no problem in creating any demand. Okay. They will create demand in higher quantity. They can create more demand. Their consumption will be higher because they can afford to buy. But those people whose income is less, they cannot afford to buy everything and whenever they want. So hence their demand also will be less. Once again, consumer with higher income has the ability to purchase, so their demand will be higher. Whereas the consumer whose income is less, they have lower purchasing power, hence they may buy less. So this is the second point, that's the income of the consumer. Now this we shall discuss in some detail. The income of the consumer. On the basis of the relationship between the income of the consumer and the demand of a commodity, it is important for us to understand some concept. Now this concept or these 3 types of commodities are based on the relationship between income of a consumer and demand of a commodity. Now on the basis of the income, let us understand the 3 important concepts. First is normal good. What is a normal good? Normal good refers to those particular kind of commodity which are demanded more when the income increases and demanded less when the income falls. Example is rice. Normal good, demanded higher at higher income and demanded lower at lower income. Example is rice. Okay, so that is a normal good. Next we have is inferior good. Inferior good refers to those particular kind of commodity which are demanded more when the income is less. And when the income is higher, then the demand also will be less. Just opposite relationship. When the income is high, your demand is low. And when the income is less, you happen to create more demand. If this is the commodity, then it is called an inferior good. Now example is that of black and white television. When a consumer is poor, he hardly would be able to afford one black and white television. Okay, but all of a sudden if he becomes rich, he will not buy 3 black and white television, 5 black and white television. He will do away with the black and white television. He will not buy black and white television. That means when the income was low, he was buying black and white television. But when the income is high, he will buy less of the black and white television, because black and white television is an inferior good. Example is that of the maize, which is cheaper. Okay, when the income is less, people won't be able to afford. Consumers won't be able to buy rice because this is expensive. So people will have to compromise with the maize. Low income people will have to compromise with the maize. But what will happen to the same consumer when his income rises? When the income rises, he will stop buying maize and he will buy rice. That means what is happening with the maize? Maize, a consumer was buying when his income was less, and when the income was more, he, instead of buying more, he will not buy maize. Okay, because this is an inferior good. Now, the third type of good that should be understood in relation to the income of a consumer and the demand of a commodity is the inexpensive necessity of life. There are some inexpensive, very cheap, but those are necessity of life, very important. Okay, like example is that of salt and matchbox. These are inexpensive, very cheap. For around 15-16 rupees, you will get 1 kg of salt. For 10 rupees, you will get 10 box of matchbox. Okay, so these are inexpensive but very important. Sometimes, if you don't have matchbox, then how to make fire becomes difficult, impossible sometimes for us. These are very important but inexpensive necessity of life. Now, what will happen to their demand? Everybody can buy because these are cheaper. But when a consumer is poor, you will buy 1 box of matchstick for 1 month. That will suffice him. That will be enough. 1 kg of salt. That will be enough. Okay. But what will happen if the same consumer becomes rich or his income increases? Then in that case, he may prefer to buy 3 packets of salt and 5 packets of matchbox. Because if he does so, then he will not have to do any shopping on this item the following month. It will be easy. Just bring and store. Okay. So it will rise up to a certain level, and after that it will remain flat. When a poor person buys 1 kg of salt for 1 month, when he becomes richer, when his income increases, he may prefer to buy 3 kg of salt, but he will not buy 20 kg of salt, 50 kg of salt. Just because he has become richer, he will not buy 30 and 50 kg of salt. So his graph is like this. Initially the demand for such kind of commodity will rise, but after that it will remain constant. Okay? So this is for inexpensive necessity of life, and all these normal goods, inferior goods and inexpensive necessity of life has to be understood from consumer's income point of view. Okay, this is from income's point of view. Okay, once again listen very carefully. Normal good, consumer buys more at when the income increases and buys less when the price income decreases. Example rice. Inferior good, just opposite. When the income is less, consumers buy more of this kind of product, and when the income increases, consumer will buy less of this kind of product. Inexpensive necessity of life, consumer, when the income of the consumer increases, consumer would increase the demand for such kind of commodity up to a certain level, and after that it will remain constant. So these are the 3 different and very important concepts that you should understand. These are the 3 different type of commodities. Now, before the video becomes too long, dear children, I would like to take a break, and the remaining explanation I will send you in the next video clip. Thank you.